Hello, my name is Justin Bright, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. Kind of got a busy launch schedule today. We have a bunch of rockets that are kind of backed up on the pad because I had to do things a little bit out of order. But I'll talk more about that in a moment. Right now, we have to deal with the fact that we have the Pioneer Venus spacecraft finally entering into the sphere of influence of Venus. So yes, indeed, I have done what I mentioned that I would do and adjusted the parasite a bit to get it so that it was not on an impact trajectory anymore, which is what it was. So now it is going to be missing Venus by about 200 kilometers and coming around on the back side here, which is good because Earth is that away. So we have actually a pretty perfect shot of our parasite being the same altitude or the same orientation as we need to actually communicate back to Earth, which is good because Venus rotates real slow. So yeah, that should work out really well, I'm hoping. I'm just so thrilled to say that I have about 3,900 meters per second of delta V remaining, and if I spend just quite a bit of delta V, I can get down into that nearly circular orbit that I have been talking about oh so much. Yeah, this should be perfect. This should scrub off all the velocity that we need to land safely. Well, maybe land safely, that depends. But this should get us into a good orbit so that we don't have any weirdness of when we can drop off. Like, this should give us a lot of flexibility on how we approach this. So yeah, we are going to do that. I'm going to basically just see if I can't do a circularize at the next parasite, please and thank you. There we go, 3628 to completely circularize in low orbit. And this is 200 kilometers, so it's kind of just above the surface, which I think is fine. I think that's good. The atmosphere is at 145, and we want the gentlest descent into the Venusian atmosphere. And I think that will do it for us. So we are going to give that a shot. And that should also allow me to very easily, like, drop down my parasite down to something that can drop off the probe and then raise it back up and not have to do all that weird stuff that I did with the previous one. So let's go ahead and get that moving. So we have another day until we get that down, until we get down to the parasite. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a maneuver node because we are going to do some jumping back and forth because yes, we do have multiple and we're back having reloaded the vessel, which allows me to use my RCS once again. I do not know why that is a thing that happens every time. I really wish it would not, but you know, we do what we can. So yeah, anyways, I am looking to at our parasite, we are going to, and actually just put a new node down just for funsies. Circularize at the next parasite, please and thank you. Okay, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna drop an alarm clock because we're going to be bouncing back and forth. So we are pointing at the sun. Everything should be hunky-dory with that, and we will be back to this. But we have rockets that are sitting on the pad and waiting for us. 3, 2, 1, ignition. And we have liftoff of a Teledelta rocket that is bringing up the solution to the Geostationary satellite network contract problem that I had. Because, as it turns out, I must have misread, or maybe it was a problem with updating RP-1 while I had things in flight. I don't know, but right now the Geostationary communications network contract is 4 nodes, and I even tested canceling it, and I can't even accept it unless I do the 4-node like test contract, like the early satellite contract. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think it must have changed while I had it accepted. But it's fine. So what I'm just doing now is I'm just launching a 4th node to the network, and I'm just going to put it up, and I don't really care where it ends up. I'm not going to worry about that. But it does otherwise satisfy all of the conditions for the contract, and theoretically, hopefully, that is going to allow us to finish up this geostationary satellite network contract, because I'm already happy with the network as it is. So this one, whether it succeeds or fails, doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of actually completing the darn contract. And you can see by the contract itself, we have much easier parameters than we gave ourselves for the actual network. So the other ones are all 23 hours, 54 minutes, and 2 seconds. Like, that's what the period is for each one of them. And they all have fairly similar inclination and near zero eccentricity. So those are all pretty darn close. Not perfect, but pretty close. So this one, it's just not going to matter that much. This is just going to be a bonus satellite in the same network. Just a couple seconds till we drop off our first stage, which you'll see that I have put the LR-101s back on, and the RL-10 has kicked on, and we are away. Yeah, so there shouldn't be too much drama on this mission, fingers crossed, because this is all well-tested parts and a mission that we have flown before, and this is actually well overpowered for the mission that we are attempting, because we're just trying to get this little, now just one satellite onto a trajectory that is geostationary. So we're doing this to just try to clear out our darn contract list, because I find myself wanting to accept new contracts, and I've actually got a bit of a shuffle on the pad right now. I've got the Gemini 6 and the Gemini 5 Lunar both sitting on the 700-ton pad, or wanting to sit on the 700-ton pad, because but I can't launch one because I don't have the contract for Gemini 6, but that's one I rolled out, and the Gemini 5L, I would have to like swap the rockets, but I also have the Pioneer Venus to deal with in a day. So it's all very silly. It's all things that we're already solving these problems by having a new mission control, which is going to solve the contract issue, a heavier launch complex, which is going to solve the fact that I only have the one pad for all of my main missions. So once we solve those things, then that's my life is going to get easier, but it's going to be a little while before those are all finished. So for that, we are now in orbit. Fantastic. Now we're doing the regular process to get us into a geostationary trajectory. And we are away. So the trouble that I had was that the mission for complicated multi-stage missions, especially multi-vessel missions, I find them very hard to read, to understand exactly what's next and why there's like a red X on one. But my third launch, it had a little red X on not Telenet Relay, which looks like I forgot to rename that Telenet Relay 3, but whatever. And that meant that it was wanting to not be any one of the first 3 launches because it wanted to be a 4th. And you'll see we have all green checkboxes all down the line. We just need to reach those orbital parameters, and we should be able to finish this up. Which should be pretty easy to do because the Teledelta is a fantastic geostationary satellite launcher. All right, so we have reached our target apogee. Because our parameters are so easy to deal with, I'm just not going to worry about tweaking it too much. Create that, and I'm going to circularize. Oh, and here's a little, oh my gosh, look at this. So I was just gonna say, here's a little test of our existing network, but we're actually talking with the Combox. Combox 2 is somewhere just above us, and we're actually getting good connection using that. Somehow. I thought the batteries on that thing would be dead by now. I really don't understand. This No, they've still got plenty of power. Gosh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting a lot of good communication out of the Combox network, even though it is just terrible. Like, look at this. We've got Combox 1, Combox 3, and then Combox 2 over here. But whenever one happens to be overhead, it is like the preference of any satellites in low Earth orbit, which I guess makes sense because we would have a lesser communication with my actual geostationary satellites, I think. But yeah, so those are still up there and working, I guess. All right, so we merge the nodes, and there we go. That should be what we're looking for. Let's go ahead and move on to that. All right, so we have the final ignition on our RL-10 engine. We are putting this into the proper orbit. And yeah, I think what you should take away from that is that with the Combox satellite constellation still working fairly well, if I were to have put that into a good synchronous orbit where all three nodes of the constellation were going to stay in a good what do you call it? Going to stay in place with each other. I think that could have worked really well. Our inclination looks like it's a little high. No, inclination is fine. Our eccentricity is bad. So, let's see if we can't circularize at our apogee. Where is our apogee? 4 hours away. Actually, at this point, I am just going to drop off our main satellite. Push away. Let's see if I can't deorbit this darn thing. All right, so that is pushing off and away towards the Earth's surface where it will impact and burn up, or just impact, one or the other. So yeah, we are in a good orbit for the most part. Now that we are at our apogee, at our apogee, I am just bringing our eccentricity down, down, down. And we need to get our period very specifically oriented. So we need to bring our period up just slightly. Looking for 54 and whatever. And there we go. We are now performing the shakeout testing for the next 2 days. So yeah, I should just be able to move on with my life and check on that later on. That we shouldn't need to do anything weird about that. I'm not going to stress about getting this into a synchronous orbit with the rest of the satellite network, because I don't care. This one is a bonus one, so just let it roam around a bit. That should be just fine. And there we go. We are pointed at the sun. Everything is all lovely and ready to go. Yep, Telenet Relay 4. That's all fine. Okay, so there we go. Shakeout testing is commencing, so let's move on to what's next. All right, so we're back at Pioneer Venus 3. We have mission control finishing building in 3 days, at which point I will be able to accept the next contract, and then I will be able to launch my next Gemini mission. But I think that gives us plenty of time to do some work here around Venus. All right, so this is a variation of the craft that I sent before, but with lots of learning that I have done in the meantime to make sure that I am doing this just a little bit better. Because in this time, I know how much solar panel power I need. I know how much fuel that I need, and I know what the characteristics of the lander has to be to have a chance of making it down safely. And so that is where we are at. Hopefully, all my bluster means I will finally finish this gosh darn mission that I have had rolling for just so very long. But we are attempting to do Venus landing and Venus orbital probe. Venus orbital probe is pretty much a gimme once we get into this orbit in the next 2 hours. So we are just coming on down to the dark side of Venus. One of the things that I'm doing is making sure that the power systems are as completely full as they possibly can be. We have 43 minutes, and I'm going to wait until we are behind the planet to actually turn this spacecraft around, because I want to be maxed out on power. We don't have a ton, but there's not going to be any sun where we are landing, and Venus only rotates once every 243 days. Like, it takes 243 days for it to rotate around, and so I can't expect that landing here on this side of the planet is going to allow us to get good sun. So what I'm going to actually probably do, now that I think about it, is because I don't have to worry about where in this orbit we land, I can find a place that will have good communication. So maybe like right here on the border, if I could find a way to drop my probe like right in this area, I should be able to get good communication. So that is kind of my plan. but I was I was in that power conservation mode of like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that we have enough power to transmit the science because this thing is going to have a limited lifespan after it lands on. No, just land on the sun, on the sunny side. Don't be weird about it. But we are just a couple minutes away from our burn. And now that the sun has set on us, I am going to turn this off, and we are going to open up the maneuver planner and execute our next node. And because this is a very long burn, it is going to be fairly imprecise, but it also super doesn't matter because we're just trying to circularize our orbit. We're using all but like 300 meters per second of our delta V, which should be plenty for our purposes. All right, and as those engines fire up, I start accelerating time because I cannot be bothered. Oops, we are almost done. Oh, it's almost time for this node. Gotcha, thanks. Because I cannot be bothered to go through this entire 7-minute burn time at real-time speed, so you'll excuse the fluttering of the graphics here. But yeah, so Venus is such a funky planet. It has a orbital period around the sun of 225 days, which means that a full year on Venus is about 2 days, 2 full day-night cycles, where it will go around the sun and then have a sunny side, and then the spot you are in will then have a night period as well, which, as I said, is 243 days long. The full rotational period is 243 days, which is just bonkers. Like, I can't even hardly wrap my head around it. And it also rotates backwards, and I don't know why that is. There's a lot of different theories, and the current one that, as far as I understand, is that it didn't stop. It didn't like start rotating the wrong way. What it did was it actually flipped, the planet flipped upside down 180 degrees on its axis at some point. So it's spinning the way that it always spun, but it's doing it in the other direction because it's upside down, which is just that's bonkers. Like, I don't get it. I think that's so cool. But there's a lot of work being done in astrophysics that describes why that might have happened, why that might be feasible, all of those sorts of things. And that's super exciting and cool, and something that I might need to go read more about just to educate myself, because it's not something I know much about. I haven't done too much work on the understanding the actual planets. But we are doing that with the Venus Orbital Science Probe contract. We can continue to gather data from the new satellite and maybe start working on our own theories for why Venus rotates the wrong way, or at least in a different way than every other planet in the solar system. So yeah, there's a lot of explanations out there of why it might happen. It's really hard to look through a telescope back in time to the formation of our solar system to get a real definitive answer. But I do love hearing about all the different weird things that planets and different bodies out in space can do, because everything's so bizarre. We have such a small and limited perspective. We have so few planets and moons relative to the massiveness of the galaxy and of the universe, that it's like such weird things happen and we have no idea if it's weird or not. Like, this could be something that's totally normal, but we just have no idea. We have no sample size. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Reading about the planets and having the excuse to go study them is one of the things I love about this game. But we are just about in our orbit, and we have actually given ourselves a very dangerous perigee. Thankfully, we're heading up to our apogee even as we speak, which is good, because otherwise we would be dying. So what I'm going to do is we are just going to... we're rotating a bit. Let's stop that. Okay. Because I just want to move up to our apogee to adjust our... not apogee, our apocythe, and so that we can adjust our parascythe, because this is below the atmosphere. Although, no. Let's get stable, and then I will consider where we want to drop off. Although, I don't know. Let's see. If I were to, in the next couple of minutes, my control is locked. I have no... ugh. Man, that's so annoying. All right, so if I bring our parasite down just a bit, we should be able to get a good drop into a place where we have, what do you call it? Where we will have sunlight. So I'm just going to say like minus, whoops, not that many. Yeah, like minus 25, that's going to give us a parasite of 50 kilometers, which I think should be safe. And I imagine we're going to drop even sooner than this. And hopefully it will be in a place where there is sunlight. That would be lovely. But yeah, so that is the plan for that. I am going to, now that we've fixed the clouds, all right, we have brought our parasite down dangerously low. And remember, we do not actually have control. So we will be entering the atmosphere, it looks like, right about here. Right about here-ish. So I'm just going to say, okay, what if I reduce my... What if I do a whole bunch of minus prograde right there? And that is going to give me the place for us to point our spacecraft. And this time I'm going to remember that we need to spin to win. We need to go back to our old days. Someone reminded me in the comments that this is something that I forgot to do, and it is indeed something that I have forgotten to do a bunch of times. But yeah, we're going back to our heritage, pointing in this direction. We are getting ourselves nicely settled here. All right, so we are pointed in the right direction, and this is about all we can do. So I think now I would like to spin us up, but I don't actually have connection, so I can't manually just do that. But that's probably fine. This thing should be aerodynamically stable, question mark. Here's hoping anyways. But yeah, we are as charged up as we're going to be, although I could probably give it a little bit extra. One's which? Hold on. This one, yep, that one's full. So there we go. We are all set and ready to roll. Let's go ahead and separate our spacecraft. All right, so with that one away, now it's time to point this craft, point this prograde, and fix our orbit. Make sure we do not actually fall into the planet's atmosphere. All right, so that gives us a 364 by 268 orbit, which is just fine. And now we are back to our little spacecraft here. And yeah, there's nothing else to do with this one but wait for us to get down into the atmosphere. I have no... Oh, yeah, it's expected that I have no action. All right, and we have connection, which is fantastic. I was a little bit worried about that working out, but yeah, this one has a small antenna built in, just the built-in real antenna, 25 dBm, tech level 2, just the littlest thing to conserve power primarily, because this thing does not actually, I thought this had solar panels for some reason, but no, it does not. It is actually going to be falling. It doesn't matter if it's in daylight or not, because it doesn't have batteries, but it does have 4 days worth of power. So it should be able to do a bunch of science and then transmit that back home. All right, so even though I didn't manage to spin it up, we are still pointing in mostly the right direction as we are coming close to the atmospheric interface, which we have just now hit. And now it is time for us to warp on down and hope that everything works out fine. The unfortunate thing is that this is going to take a very long time, so I may give you guys the highlights of this one, because I've talked a little bit about some of the early Venus probes. There's not been a ton of exploration of Venus that we have done with spacecraft beyond the ones that I've talked about. It's something that we're thinking about coming up in the future. Like there was the the fairly recent, as of the time of this recording, discovery of a chemical compound called phosphine in the Venusian atmosphere, which is it's either going to be a new branch of high heat chemistry that we did not quite understand before, or it's a marker that could indicate something kind of like life. And I'm couching that as much as I am, because that's exactly how much couching it needs, because it is not like, oh my god, there's definitely life here, even though a lot of mainstream news outlets reported it as such. It's just a possible indicator of, hey, we don't understand why this chemical compound is here because we normally associate it with things that are alive. So that's something that is a possible, makes Venus a very interesting candidate for exploration in the future, and something I'm super excited to see more missions for. But we are rolling in KCT upgrade points. There is just science coming in from somewhere. We are doing some science on our way down, which is lovely. Because there's science to be done on supersonic flight in Venus's atmosphere, as well as pressure scan, temperature scan, and those are all things that should get done as we are hurtling to the ground. But this is, the lunar rated heat shield is just operating just fine. We have a maximum set of ablator, but we did not turn out to need much of that at all. So that was some dead weight that we have brought with us. But maybe the dead weight will get this darn thing a little bit further down faster, because this is the part now that we've gone through the heat, the hot part of the fall, this is the part that's going to take a very long time. We're falling now through the roiling clouds of Venus. That's a really fun shot. But yeah, these clouds would be incredibly corrosive if they modeled that as well as just temperature. And I just gotta hope that I have the right material on my parachute. All right, we are just about a kilometer above the surface, and I know at some point soon, hopefully, this parachute should open up. Oh yeah, about 800 degrees. Ooh, it's warm. But it's also fine because the chute max temperature is 500 degrees Celsius compared to, because it is made of Kevlar. And the current chute temperature is 431 degrees because Venus is freaking warm. Oh, now that's a really cool shot. Although it does show off my embarrassingly small little parachute. Turn off my better time warp. This up. What happened to the other one? They're just the one? Excellent. God, that's cool and alien, and I love it. Look at that solid wall of clouds above us and the blue sun trying to push through. This is what a greenhouse effect gone absolutely mad looks like. It just is you can barely see the sun through the clouds. And remember, the sun is like twice as bright here as it is on Earth because of how much closer Venus is to the sun. And here we go. We are almost to touchdown on Venus. And touchdown. There we go. We have landed successfully on Venus. And we have 2 days worth of power. Fantastic. Which is what we need because we are doing science like mad. All right. So we are going to leave that for there at the moment. Now I just need to see, we actually got all kinds of stuff. Look at all the stuff in orbit of Venus. Holy crap. But yeah, in the time it took us to land here, our orbiter got literally halfway around the planet. Ooh, we are overheating just sitting here. Holy crap. Hopefully that doesn't actually get too much hotter. Oh my god. There we go. We have signal. We are sending science from the surface of Mars right now. Yes! Let's do a surface sample. Let's scoop up some dirt and have a little, we can't send it back, obviously, but we can have our robot do some analysis, do some spectroscopy right on board, which is just fantastic. So I am so stoked. We have finished it. Congratulations. Landing a probe on another planetary body in our system is no easy feat. The science gathered from this lander will unlock some of the secrets of our solar system. Yes, indeed. We have done something that very few have managed before, and that is actually begin to do science on the surface of Venus. And so we actually Fortunately, we have time and we have battery power to run a lot of our science. So you can see we're turning off all this stuff. There's no avionics to shut down on this. This is just a science core. But as I finish with the science, I can just turn stuff off because obviously it's not going anywhere else. Stopped. And that is going to make our probe last a little bit longer and a little bit longer. So we're not going to be able to finish things like mass spectrometry 2 and supersonic flight analysis and so forth. But we should be able to, now that we are doing the surface analysis. That's going to take half an hour. That's probably going to be the next pass. So we get that done, and then we can do the surface sample, which I know we can send some of that back home. We can't send the whole batch back home, but we can send some of that information back home as a transmit. And we are coming around for another pass from the orbiter, and actually we're getting communication from Pioneer Venus 2, which is fantastic. But yeah, we are getting a good amount of science, and a lot of that is... actually, I'm not sure if any of this is coming home now that I think about it. Although it is telling me upgrade point added a bunch, so maybe it is. So there we go. We have done it. We have gotten just a whole bunch of good science. The mass spectrometry is going to last for 2 more weeks. So basically, I am going to be running this until the probe dies and getting just what science we can. But even now, we've gotten 442 science, and that's just what we've sent. I think there might even be a lot more to send up over time. So over the course of this probe's existence, it is going to be sending up this data slowly because it has a connection that is at 2.6 kilobits per second. So this will not be a problem to get a megabyte of data back up. It should do that in plenty of time before this thing dies. So yeah, that's it. We have landed on Venus. I have put in a bunch of orbiters in the attempt to do this, but we have finally successfully landed on Venus, and how freaking cool is this? This just looks so cool. I'm so stoked. Mission successful. I am excited. This was great. But now I think we are done for a while with Venus until maybe we send some crew past it. We'll see what happens. All right, so we have returned back to the Space Center, and I have 23 upgrades. After all that science we got, hundreds of science we have achieved from that mission to Venus. And that is kind of what this looks like at this point, is we're going to get a lot more bang for our buck in these types of upgrades rather than spending 20,000 funds a pop on it. Although we do have 1.4 million, so we could spend a bunch. But there's a lot of things to unlock before we really get to that. So I'm going to put a little bit of points into science. And we're going to put 5, 4, there we go. 6 points into rate 1, 4 points into rate 2. Just to keep things moving on up, because we are getting to bigger and bigger rockets. My Paladin 3s take a while to build, so yeah, that's something that we have to contend with. All right, so with contract complete, now we can actually grab one last contract, because our next mission is going to be a relatively normal one. All right, so we've grabbed ourselves a nice, easy orbital flight with maneuvers and 2+ crew mission to go along with it, because it's always good to make money where you can. Another thing that I would like to do is hire a couple more astronauts. So we have 2 pilots, 2 scientists, and 1 engineer. We're going to want more crews because I'm obviously able to get more vessels up and running. So Edward Walters, you look like a good new pilot. Fabulous. Donna Smith as another scientist. All right, and we're also going to grab another engineer, Inessa Bogolyubova. I think we are at a point where we can hire Soviet-sounding astronauts. I think that's probably fine at this stage. the problem that I normally am confronting is just being honest with myself about being able to pronounce this name. So I'm unfortunately going to be calling her Inessa most of the time and not giving her a proper last name call. But that's not too abnormal for how I've been treating these astronauts to begin with. But so there you go. There we go. Now we have a nice full astronaut class. We've got 1, 2, 3 pilots. We got 1, 2, 3 scientists and 2 engineers, which I think is a good set of astronauts to keep in rotation as we are moving forward for our with our Gemini program and onward towards Apollo. All right, so we're putting them into the program, and that's going to take more than a year of training, which is just tragic, really. But there you go. That's what it is. So there we go. They are now underway, and we will be just using our first set for the first for these next couple of missions. Shoot, by the time they get finished with this, I might need to train them straight into Apollo, for goodness sake. Yeah, I think I'm just going to get them straight into Apollo because I know I will be using that soonish. I will be graduating to Apollo probably within the next year. So I think I'm just going to have these 2 crews be my Gemini astronauts, and then we're going to expand to 3 crews when we get to Apollo, which is what they're going to do because it's going to take 450 freaking days to get that training completed. So woof. The other 2 crews I will wait until I get the astronaut complex upgraded, and hopefully that will shave off at least some of the time, for goodness sake. So yeah, that's that. Now we have, let's see, what else? Yep, we are just about ready to launch, but I think that's going to have to wait for next time. I am going to leave it there, and we will get back to the crewed space program in the next episode. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff, and I'll see you next time.